You take your blood pressure medication every morning. You've been doing it for years. You take it with breakfast, or right when you wake up, or whenever you remember. And it's always in the morning, because that's what the bottle says. And it works. Your afternoon readings are fine. Your evening readings are fine. Your doctor checks the number, nods, says you're doing great. But something is happening at 4 a.m. every single night that your medication has already worn off too much to stop. I'm not going to tell you to change your medication. I'm going to tell you something much simpler and much more controversial that the largest clinical trial ever conducted on blood pressure timing found. And then I'm going to tell you why some doctors embraced it, some rejected it, and what I think you should actually do. Here's what most people picture when they think about their blood pressure medication. You take the pill, it starts working, and it protects you like a roof over your head. All day, all night, steady coverage. That's not how it works. Every blood pressure medication has a curve. It enters your system, it ramps up, it hits a peak, and then it starts to fade. Some drugs peak in 2 hours, some in 6, some hold strong for a full 24 hours, and some don't. And that peak, the point where your medication is doing its strongest work, almost never lines up with the time your blood pressure is at its most dangerous. So it's not that your medication isn't working. It is working, just not when you need it most. And once you see this mismatch, you can't unsee it. Think about your own mornings. You wake up. Your body is shifting from sleep mode to awake mode. Your nervous system fires up, cortisol surges, your blood vessels tighten, your heart starts pumping harder. This is called the morning surge, and it happens to everyone, every single day. For most people over 60, the morning surge is the highest their blood pressure goes in a full 24-hour cycle. Not at the stressful meeting, not at the doctor's office, not after a salty dinner, at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., while they're still in bed or just getting up. And here's the part that connects it. If you take your pill at 7 a.m., most medications won't hit their peak until somewhere between noon and 2 p.m. Your strongest protection arrives 5 to 7 hours after your highest risk has already passed. Your medication is peaking when your blood pressure is already coming down on its own, and it's fading when your blood pressure is climbing toward its next surge. You're covered at 2 p.m., you're exposed at 4 a.m. That's the mismatch, and it's been hiding in plain sight. Vivian understood this better than most because she had the data to prove it, and nobody would look at it. Vivian is 73, retired music teacher from Tennessee, plays piano every Sunday at her church, the same church she's been going to for 40 years, and she's meticulous. The kind of person who keeps a leather notebook by the nightstand with every single blood pressure reading she's taken since 2019, date, time, arm, number, everyone. Her morning readings, taken right when she woke up, same arm, same cuff, same chair, ran between 152 and 164 every morning for months. Her afternoon readings, the ones she'd take around lunchtime, 118 to 126, beautiful. She brought her notebook to her doctor, showed the morning column. The doctor glanced at it, checked the afternoon reading taken right there in the office, 122, and said, "Looks good." Vivian went home, kept measuring. 6 months later, she brought the notebook again. New pages, same pattern. Morning, high, afternoon, fine. The doctor looked at the office reading, 119, and said the same thing. Vivian went home again, but this time she circled every morning reading in red. The third visit, she put the notebook on the desk, open to the red circles, and said something I wish more patients felt comfortable saying. She said, "I'm not asking about 2 p.m., I'm asking about 6 a.m. Now, the viewer's instinct here is to think her doctor dropped the ball, wasn't listening, didn't care. But that's not what happened. Her doctor wasn't ignoring the numbers. The problem is the system doesn't have a protocol for this. There's no checkbox on the visit form that says, patient brings home readings that contradict in-office observation. The system is built to trust the number it measures in the room. And that number, every single time, said Vivian was fine. Vivian wasn't fighting a bad doctor. She was fighting a blind spot in how blood pressure gets measured. Her doctor, to her credit, finally ordered something called ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, ABPM. It's a cuff that straps to your arm and takes a reading every 20 to 30 minutes for a full 24 hours. You wear it during the day, you sleep in it at night, it's uncomfortable, it's annoying, and it is, hands down, the single most revealing test in blood pressure medicine. Vivian's 24-hour profile came back, and it showed exactly what her notebook had been saying for 3 years. A massive morning surge. Her pressure climbed past 160 by 5 a.m., peaked near 170 at 6:30, and didn't come down until almost 10. And between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., her Lisinopril, taken at 7 every morning, was at less than half its strength. The drug peaked around 1 p.m. By the time the next morning rolled around, it was running on fumes. Her doctor saw the profile. They talked about it, and together they made one change. They split her dose, half in the morning, half at bedtime, same medication, same total dose, different clock. 6 weeks later, Vivian's morning average dropped from 158 to 134. Same pill, same woman, same notebook. The only thing that changed was when the coverage landed, which would have been a clean ending. Except Vivian's story opened a question that goes much bigger than one patient's schedule. Because if timing can make that much difference for Vivian, what does the actual research say? And why is this still controversial? In 2019, a massive study came out of Spain called the Hygia chronotherapy trial. Over 19,000 patients. The question was simple. Does taking blood pressure medication at bedtime instead of in the morning reduce heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular death? The results were staggering. Patients who took at least one of their medications at bedtime had a 45% reduction in major cardiovascular events compared to those who took everything in the morning. 45% with the same drugs, just moved to a different time of day. That number made headlines around the world. Some cardiologists started recommending bedtime dosing immediately. Patients brought it up at appointments. It felt like a breakthrough. And then the question started. Other researchers looked closely at the Hygia data and found problems. The event rates in the morning dosing group were unusually high, higher than you'd expect in a general blood pressure population. The way patients were assigned to groups raised concerns. Some of the statistical patterns didn't behave the way they should if the randomization was truly random. Respected voices in cardiology started saying, these results are too good. Something about this data doesn't add up. So a second trial was launched. The TIME trial, out of the UK, over 21,000 patients. Same basic question, morning versus evening. And in 2022, the results came back. No significant difference. Morning dosing, evening dosing, in the TIME trial, outcomes were almost identical. So now you have two huge studies. One says bedtime dosing cuts events by nearly half. One says it doesn't matter at all. And if you're sitting at home trying to figure out what to do with your own pill bottle, you're stuck. Here's what I think is actually going on, and this is where it gets useful for you. The Hygia trial and the TIME trial weren't asking the same question, even though they looked like they were. Hygia selected patients whose blood pressure profiles showed specific nighttime patterns. TIME enrolled a broader population. Hygia tracked ambulatory readings. TIME relied more on standard measurements. The populations were different. The monitoring was different. The conclusions were different because the inputs were different. What both trials agree on, and this is the part that matters for you, is that blood pressure is not the same number all day long. It moves, it surges, it dips. And if your medication's coverage curve doesn't match your pressure's risk curve, there's a gap. The question isn't, should I take my pill at night? The question is, when is my blood pressure highest, and when does my medication peak? And do those two windows line up? And that's a question you can actually answer. Have you ever looked at your medication bottle and wondered how long it actually lasts, not how long it's prescribed for and how long it's actually active in your body? Because the differences are enormous. Amlodipine, that's a calcium channel blocker, one of the most commonly prescribed blood pressure drugs, is a true 24-hour medication. You take it once and it holds steady all day and all night. Timing matters less with amlodipine because the coverage curve is almost flat. Lisinopril, an ACE inhibitor, another extremely common one, lasts 18 to 20 hours in most people, which means if you take it at 7 a.m., by 1 or 2 a.m., you're starting to lose coverage. And by 4 or 5 a.m., you might have a meaningful gap before your next dose kicks in. That's exactly what happened with Vivian. Metoprolol, a beta blocker in diuretic, often lasts around 12 hours. 12. So if you take it once a day in the morning, your entire nighttime and early morning is potentially uncovered. Frank found this out the hard way. 71, retired machinist, been on Metoprolol for 6 years, woke up every single morning with his heart pounding. Not racing, pounding. A heavy, forceful beat in his chest that lasted about an hour after waking. He told his wife it was anxiety. She told him to talk to his doctor. He told his cardiologist, who ran an EKG, an echo, a stress test. Everything came back normal. Heart's fine, Frank. But every morning, pound, pound, pound. What nobody had explained to Frank is that Metoprolol, which slows the heart rate and reduces the force of each beat, was wearing off around 2 a.m. His body, released from the drug's effect, was doing what bodies do, rebounding. Heart rate climbing, force increasing, his cardiovascular system waking up without any of the dampening that the drug had been providing all day. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't his heart failing. It was a 12-hour drug trying to do a 24-hour job. The symptom wasn't disease. It was a gap in the schedule. His doctor switched him to the extended release version, metoprolol succinate instead of tartrate, and the morning pounding stopped within a week. Which raises a question most people never think to ask about the bottle on their own counter. How long does your medication actually last? And does it last long enough? Diuretics add another layer to this. If you're on a water pill, hydrochlorothiazide, furosemide, chlorthalidone, timing matters for a completely different reason. These drugs make you urinate more. That's how they lower pressure. They reduce fluid volume. And if you take a diuretic at bedtime, you will be up 3, 4, 5 times a night. Doris learned this. 69, still working part-time as a librarian. She'd read about the Hygia trial online and asked her doctor about switching her hydrochlorothiazide to bedtime. Her doctor said no. Doris left that appointment frustrated. She felt dismissed. Another doctor who wouldn't listen. But her doctor was right. Not because bedtime dosing is wrong as a concept, but because a diuretic at bedtime would have wrecked Doris's sleep, and poor sleep raises blood pressure on its own. The doctor just didn't explain why she said no. And that's the gap Doris fell into. Not a medical gap, a communication gap. The answer she needed wasn't no. It was not with this drug, and here's the reason. What Doris should have been able to ask, and what you can ask, is this. My morning readings are consistently higher than my afternoon readings. Can we talk about whether the timing of my medication matches my highest risk window? That sentence doesn't ask the doctor to change anything. It doesn't challenge anyone's judgment. It opens a conversation about your specific coverage curve. And it's the sentence that got Vivian her 24-hour monitor, got Frank his extended release switch, and got Doris an actual explanation instead of a one-word answer. Now, I mentioned that 24-hour monitor, the ambulatory blood pressure monitor, and I want to be honest about it because it's not fun. Raymond can tell you. 74, former high school principal, agreed to wear the cuff for 24 hours after his daughter convinced him. He called it the most annoying day of my life. The cuff inflates every 20 to 30 minutes. During the day, it's inconvenient. At night, it wakes you up. Every single time. Raymond almost took it off at 2 a.m. His wife talked him out of it. The printout came back the next week. And here's what Raymond expected to see. High morning numbers, confirming what he'd been measuring at home, giving him ammunition to ask about bedtime dosing. What the monitor actually showed was something neither Raymond nor his doctor had predicted. Raymond's blood pressure dropped at night, significantly. He was what's called a dipper. His pressure fell by more than 20% during sleep, bottoming out around 3 a.m. For a dipper, moving medication to bedtime could push nighttime pressure too low. Dangerously low. Low enough to reduce blood flow to the brain and heart during sleep. The change Raymond wanted to make, the change he'd been ready to request, would have been the wrong one for his specific pattern. The monitor didn't confirm his assumption. It protected him from a change that could have caused real harm. And that's why take it at night isn't a universal answer. It's why the research is still unsettled. And it's why the real answer, the one that actually helps, isn't about morning versus evening. It's about your curve matching your coverage. So here's what you can actually do with all of this. First, if you're measuring at home, start measuring at the same time every morning. Before coffee, before breakfast, before your medication. Sit for 5 minutes first. Take 2 readings, 1 minute apart, and write down the second one. Do it for 2 weeks. You're building a morning profile, the one number your doctor almost never sees. Second, ask your pharmacist, not just your doctor, one specific question. How many hours of coverage does my blood pressure medication actually provide? Pharmacists know this cold. If the answer is less than 24, you have a conversation to start. Third, and this is the one that makes the biggest difference, ask your doctor about ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. The 24-hour test. You can say exactly this. I've been noticing my morning readings at home are consistently higher than what we see in the office. Would it make sense to do a 24-hour monitor to see my full profile? Some doctors will say yes immediately. Yes. Some will want to see your home readings first, which is why step 1 matters. You're building the case before you make the ask, just like Vivian did. Fourth, if your doctor recommends any change to your medication timing, ask 2 follow-up questions. Will this affect my sleep? And am I a dipper? Does my pressure drop significantly at night? Those 2 questions protect you from a change that sounds good on paper, but doesn't fit your body. And fifth, if you're on a beta blocker, especially metoprolol tartrate, the short-acting version, and you wake up with a pounding heart or a racing pulse, don't assume it's stress. Ask whether the extended-release version might give you more consistent coverage. Frank's morning changed when his formulation did. Same drug name, different release pattern, different result. None of these steps require you to stop anything, change anything on your own, or argue with anyone. They're conversations, informed conversations. The kind you can have because now you understand what the pill is actually doing inside the 24 hours between one dose and the next. Remember that morning, the one we started with. You take your medication, you go about your day, your afternoon readings look fine, your evening readings look fine, and at 4 a.m., while you're asleep, something is happening that nobody is measuring and your medication may not be covering. Now you know why that happens, and now you know it doesn't have to. The next time you pick up that pill bottle, you won't just see a medication. You'll see a coverage window, and you'll know exactly what questions to ask to make sure that window is open when it matters most. If someone you care about takes blood pressure medication and has never thought about when it peaks and when it fades, send them this video. It might be the most useful 15 seconds you spend today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.